Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today is going to be one of those out and about recordings, so apologies in advance for all the noise that you guys are going to hear. You're going to hear people in the background, cars driving by, and some welding work and things like that going on in the background. Because I'm in the building where, well, not in the building, the compound rather, where there's lots of construction work going on, and I want to make sure that I get my episodes out timely to you guys like I promised, so I figured I'd just go ahead and make the best of a bad situation. So, on to today's topic. Now, there are people who insist that we have to be logical when it comes to sales and to marketing. They, those people who insist that we shouldn't have any emotional fluff and stuff like that when we're trying to put out marketing communications or when we're trying to sell to people. And of course, I understand where those people are coming from, or rather, we have to understand where these people are coming from because we always want to make sure that we're doing things ethically and above board whenever we're trying to um, get into a business relationship with someone or we want to persuade them to use our products or our services. Although I like to teach that we can't really persuade anyone to do anything, but that's a podcast recording for another episode. But on the other hand, there are other people who say that you're going to be much more effective if you go all emotional with your messaging and your approach when you're trying to convince someone to buy. So, just in case you guys didn't get it, there are two camps when it comes to these sorts of things. Some people say, let's be all logical when we're trying to, when we're in a sales conversation with someone, and then some people say, to be effective, we have to go emotional. Now, the concern of the logical camp that we've looked at, they're justified because there's there's so much of a history of people who just go out, they're sharply dressed, they're attractive, they're really charming and persuasive people, and they trick people into sales with emotional appeals and gimmicks and things of that nature. And I guess that's the sort of thing that these people, the logical camp, are revolting against. They just want to make sure that those of us who see ourselves as sales professionals, we're not running all over the place trying to hoodwink people because we're charming and we can elicit strong emotions in people. So the business world is full of these stories of people who have lots of woe and lots of regret when they meet salespeople, marketers, business people, and others who are really strong at whipping up greed, euphoria, fear, other emotions, like the sorts of things that people do in the MLM space, the multi-level marketing, the multi-level marketing space. Well, at least in Nigeria, anyway. I mean, those people they use all kinds of emotional appeals to get you to attend the meetings and to get you to buy. You know that whole. Do you want to live a life of ease and a life of plenty? Do you want to secure the best for your generations unborn? Are you tired of the poverty and the financial constraints in the country and blah blah blah? All that jazz that they use before they invite you for that secret meeting where they're going to give you the secret that is going to change your life forever. So I think this is the backdrop of many of the horror stories that people have when they're talking about interactions with salespeople, where things have gone sour because the customer ends up buying something in this tense emotional state and then they end up with buyer's remorse or they end up with buyer's regret. The difference between buyer's remorse and buyer's regret, I've done a podcast on that before. So if this is your first time of listening to the show, just look for one of the podcast episodes. Once you're done after this, scroll down until you see buyer's remorse or buyer's regret, and then you're going to get a treatment of it in greater detail. But the difference basically is that in one set of circumstances, the buyer is angry with you for making them to get into this situation, while in the other context, the buyer is angry with themselves for allowing themselves to be hoodwinked into this kind of situation, which didn't pan out too well. So the logical people, they're trying to avoid buyer's remorse or buyer's regret, because when people have buyer's remorse or buyer's regret, they're not going to come back and do business with us in the future. So while it makes sense in some kinds of business context to overweigh the logical and downplay the emotional, such as in financial services, which is exactly what people in the MLM space are, because you're basically making a play for people to make sound business decisions, sound investment decisions, and they're trying to ramp up the emotions. So while it makes sense that if you're having much more um, business and logical focused conversations, while it makes sense to go up on the logical and downplay the emotional, we do have to admit that there are other contexts where emotions are going to be the key driver for the customer's purchase. So let me repeat that again. In some situations, it would be nice to go all logical and analytical, but we have to admit that there are some situations where emotional is the key. For instance, a lot of us don't buy diapers for our kids or food brands for the children because we use logical spreadsheets to compare the pros and cons of one diaper over another. And it's the same when we're buying our luxury goods and a host of all other personal items that we use for self-care and also for the care of ourselves and our loved ones. It's not a logical decision that you run through using an Excel spreadsheets. Also, most brides don't select a wedding photographer or a florist or a wedding planner by running through a list of advantages and disadvantages and looking at logical pros and cons during the consultation process. So, should we be selling using emotion or selling using logic? Is it one or the other? Well, actually, both are necessary because we are human and all humans have emotional and logical capacities and capabilities. So that's the reason why we should be using both. And in fact, in traditional sales circles, um, lots of trainers will tell you that most people buy with emotions and then justify the purchase with logic. Now, this is because emotions drive behavior in all aspects of human life. Now, what about people who self-profess to be entirely logical? You know, people who think of themselves as Spock in Star Trek. Now, what Brian Tracy would say is that these sorts of people, that's these logical people, in quotes, are just more emotionally tied to the idea of being dispassionate and being logical. So, in his own opinion, they're still being as emotional as the rest of us. So, just as with other areas of life, when it comes to sales, most of the times it's not an either or, but rather it's both. So it's not, are you going to use emotions or are you going to use logic? But you're going to have to use both emotions and logic depending on the context that you're in. So it's not either emotions or logic in the sales process, it is both logic and emotions in the sales process. So we should always be looking for ways to engage both the minds of our potential customers, their hearts, and we should also be engaging their brains as well if we want to be effective. So how to do so is going to be on a case-by-case basis because from what you've seen in our discussions, if you're talking about wedding photography, it's not the same as if you're talking about financial services, and it's not the same as if you're considering diapers that you want to get for the kids or food for the children. So it's not either or, it's both, and we should be looking for ways to engage our potential customers both emotionally, logically, and analytically. So thanks for today's recording. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.